Once again, hi and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about cultivating a culture of curiosity within product-driven organizations. Um, to get started, just a couple of things that you'll be needing for this session. First of all, your phone. It's going to be interactive, and somewhere along the line I'll be asking for your feedback. And so you could scan this code, and it will take you to a platform called Menti or Mentimeter, and then you can use that to track. All right, then next thing will be your notepad, in case you need to take notes. I'd also need your attention and your sense of humor, in case I drop a few jokes here and there. So I don't have to explain my jokes. Are we cool? Okay. So about me, my name is Jeffrey, Jeffrey Abdulatif Adoga. I'm a product designer. For the past 7 years, I've been creating delightful experiences for users. That's what I like to tell people. Thank you very much. My focus is largely around B2B and B2C products. I've worked with companies that are in the entertainment, healthcare, and finance sectors. And one of the things that I love to do is helping everyone who is along the same journey that I've been on to find fulfillment in what they do, and very importantly, believe in their creative ability to solve problems, especially if you're a designer, right? And then, as you can see, I also love music and solving problems. So welcome to this session. To begin this session, I would like to tell us a little bit about something called the Feature Factory. For those of us who probably haven't had any work experience yet, this is something that you might not be able to fully relate to it. But if you've worked in a company, a tech company that is building a product or a solution for customers, you may or may not have heard of this term called the Feature Factory. Now, what is the Feature Factory? Imagine a situation where you are handed over a set of requirements or a set of instructions on what to do, and without asking any question whatsoever, you just go on and produce what was specified. Now, for me, my own experience would be a case where product managers hand over PRDs to me, and in those PRDs, there's a definition of the product, there's a couple of diagrams, flowcharts, and then there's user stories. And then what ends up happening is that those user stories are then added to a Jira board, and then I have to produce screens that meet, the user stories. How many of us can relate? Anyone? Okay. Hi. All right. So the Feature Factory is basically that kind of environment where the engineering, the design, and even product managers too could get caught up in this cycle where all we are doing is just adding stories to the Jira board and then attending boring daily stand-ups, and at the end of the day, you just end up having some form of innovation fatigue because you're not actually getting anything done. So this next part, it asks a very, very important question. Am I in a feature factory? Based off of what I just explained, and for the people that, indicated, you should be able to tell whether or not you are in a feature factory. Now, the truth is, the major character, one thing that you would use to identify that experience of being in a feature factory is that the focus of the company, of the entire organization, is on churning out new features back to back. And this often comes at the expense of addressing user needs, right? So if you realize that the nature of your role, your job, is one where all you're doing day in, day out, sprint after sprint, is just churning out screens, flows, and it gets handed over to engineering, they build, implement, QA comes in, does their thing, and then the product is launched, and then it gets shipped out. Are you in a feature factory? What do you guys think? You are. But fear not. So I just gave you some ideas of what you can use to know whether or not you're in a feature factory. And so these are some of the additional characteristics, right? So you get to see that all the product team cares about is measuring its success by how many or how often it ships. And there are certain metrics that are being measured. You hear things like sprint completion rates, right? There's something called burn down rates, different fancy words, right? And those are the metrics that the company or the product teams get to use to measure their productivity. The company also believes that adding new features would always add value to the product, right? And the organization fails to test feature ideas before building them, and this fails to address the success with the users after the feature ships. Now, this is very, very important to me as a designer. And in case any of us here is wondering why, as a designer, one of the things that is core to us is empathy, understanding our users, understanding their needs, and being able to frame the problem accurately and then come up with ideas. We don't expect to have all the right answers or all the right ideas, but we come up with ideas and we test these ideas believing that they would lead to solutions, or the test process would actually give us more insight on whether these ideas work, whether they're actually solving the problem or meeting the needs. And so when you are in this kind of situation, like I said, it inhibits your creativity, it inhibits your ability to actually put yourself in that place where you are paying attention to the user needs and framing the problems that need to be solved. Now, no company starts out, looking to say, you know what, we're just going to become a feature factory, right? We know what it means and we accept it is our identity, right? That's not usually the case, but it happens unintentionally, right? And as the company becomes motivated by other priorities, sometimes it's because our competitor has this feature, right? Or sometimes it's because the sales team have told us that, this so and so clients, especially if they are high-paying clients, they're asking, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? And so what ends up happening is that the leadership team wants more features because they believe that's a sign of growth or progress, right? Or the culture. Remember I talked about some metrics, sprint completion rate, burn down rate. So the company culture celebrates those kind of metrics, right? Rather than measuring actual impact. And the last one is that, I already mentioned itself, the sales team. Because the funny thing about this kind of situation is that instead of the designers, the engineers, the PMs being the ones who actually get to sit or interact with the customers, the people who have the problems, you find out it's the sales team that has the closest point of contact to the customers or the customer support, especially customer support. Man, those guys, big ups to them. I don't think there's any of them here. Let me check. Okay, there aren't any one of them here. All right, so those guys are the ones that end up getting to interact with the customers, right? And they are not, no shade or no fault to them, they are not equipped, right, to actually understand these pain points and translate them into insights or into assumptions and build prototypes around them. They just aren't. It's not the nature of their job, right? Their job is outrightly to make the sales or to attend to tickets. So who does the job fall to? The product teams. And that's where we come in. So like I said, no company sets up to intentionally become this. But when this is just a handful. There are many more reasons. But when these sort of things happen, you find out that a company just slips or slides into that area. Now, what are the dangers of being a feature factory? Well, the first one off the top of my head is that you spend all your time doing the wrong thing. And I tag this as a resource risk because there's waste of time, there's waste of talent, there's waste of money even, right? And you are building something that nobody wants, or even worse, something that nobody needs, right? And the next one is that there's poor usability because you've built a very complex solution. And what happens is that the product becomes bloated, difficult to use. There's no easy way to understand what the product does. And you now get a lot of customer support tickets being raised. And then your metric by default has already changed because all you're focused on is closing tickets, right? And then the next one is that there's no strategic direction, right, for the company or its product. And a product without a clear-cut strategic direction is already doomed to fail, right? No matter how many features they produce, no matter how fast they are at completing their sprints, you'll be fast at producing what nobody wants. That's just it, right? And then the last one is that there's a lack of innovation. Because, and you see the next slide that I'm going to share by someone who I think we should all listen to. So because the product teams and the entire company at large have lost their ability to creatively discover, frame a problem, ideate on that problem, and then even ship out ideas or concepts that can solve those problems. There's a lack of innovation, and there's no curiosity culture. There's no innovation culture. There's no creativity in the organization. Now, this quote, frustration and curiosity fuel innovation. How many of us agree with this? Right? Have you ever seen something that just pricked at you and you're like, why is this thing like this? And then you just start looking it up. Or you ask somebody, come, why is this thing like this? Why is this happening? Let me tell you guys a funny story. I was driving on Lekki Ekpe Express one time, and I just passed the traffic light at Jakonde. And I was coming out from Jakonde, actually, along the express. And a car literally just, he wasn't speeding, no. He just, with steez, cleared my bumper. Like, he wasn't speeding. He was moving, but I saw my bumper moving in slow motion. It was so crazy. And then I came down, and I was confused. And the guy, too, was confused. And next thing, he almost started crying. Then I realized that he was a mechanic. He was taking a car to go and fix. So, double gbese. The car that he wants to fix, and then my car. And I was just like, what's going on? And then I'm like, first of all, what even happened? Why did you enter me? And then I realized that he was trying to clear for a boss, right? And the boss was in the middle of the, how do I even describe this now? The boss was in the middle of the junction. This is where the boss was. This is where the bus stop is. And I'm like, why is the bus here? And then I looked at the bus stop empty. And the place where the bus was, there were people there. And I'm like, okay, is it that? So it's a very, very funny. I said something that closure is overrated, because in that moment I realized that people don't go to the bus stop to wait, because if you wait at the bus stop before bus reach you, don't fool. So they wait by the roadside, and so the buses have to pick the passengers where the passengers are. I got this closure, but my bumper was still damaged. This is how use closure do. But that's just an interesting story about how I was curious enough to find out, why did this thing happen that just happened right now and there, even with all that was going on, I was able to use there was no innovation, sure, but there was frustration and curiosity, right? But Tony Fadell has a video on YouTube, and if you're a designer here or an engineer, I would encourage you to go and watch that video. And it talks about the superpower that you need to have as a designer. Just be curious and observant. There are problems lying around. Just pay attention. This next person, she's the author of a book called The Blue Ocean Strategy Shift, or the Blue Ocean Shift, right? And the Blue Ocean is basically just saying, instead of fighting to compete in an already saturated market, why don't we create a new market, right? And then what that means is that you leave the red ocean, which is red because there are sharks inside, right? That red color is blood. And then you go to where there's real water and solve a problem in that area. And so she says, spotting problems is easier than we can imagine. We just have to ask why. I want to play something, and I'm hoping that it works. Sorry.
Why spot orange? Why can't I drive? Why the sky blue? Why don't you go to school? Mommy, guys, I feel like shopping.
Delicious perfumed, long green and bright, pomo rises for you.
All right, so because of time, I won't let the whole video play. But how many of us know this video? Wow. Don't be shy, don't be shy. Wow. I remember watching this when I was still in secondary school. Yeah, that was a long time. But yeah, we see this child asking funny, funny questions. You've not seen it before? Yeah. And that first question, why is water wet? Like, why? Why is the sky blue? And so we see this young child asking so many questions, right? And what I took from this is that it's easier for children to learn because they are curious enough. They get to ask questions, especially the most annoying question. Who knows what the most annoying question in the world is? This is one syllable. Why? Nobody wants to hear why, especially in this our African um, context. Can't ask your parents why. You know, this child, some places they're wrong, but all right. So, fun fact: the late Toyota executive Taichi Ono was renowned for having his problems in the factory solved by repeatedly asking why, like a child would. And this makes it seem like he was always yelling and shouting why. But he came up with a framework that basically just encourages the people in the factory where they were working to ask why 5 times. And it was believed that by the time you get to the fourth why or the fifth why, you already have drilled down to the root cause of the problem, right? So why is this going wrong? And then you get an answer. Okay, but why is that thing affecting this thing? And you get an answer. Okay. So why are we letting? And you get to ask real questions that help you actually uncover problems, right? And so that takes us to a concept that I've been working on called the why bucket. The why bucket is just hinged on something very simple: the fact that questions are super important. And as someone who has I've worked in startups, I've worked in large-scale organizations, right? Both here in Nigeria, in the US. I used to think it was a Nigerian problem, but the truth is, in the tech space, in the tech world, right, we often get hung up by the cool things that we can do, right? How cool, this piece of code that we wrote is, how gengen this UI we just designed is. And you get caught up in all of these things and forget to really drill down to figuring out what problem you are solving, which is very critical, right? So the Y bucket is a way for teams, product teams, to actually ignite that spark of curiosity, right, which can lead to innovation. So, work culture driven by curiosity, teams need to embrace the ability to ask why, right? And it's my belief that in being able to ask these questions, actually, we just saw the quote by Tony Fadell. He said, "Frustration and curiosity drives innovation." And so, by being able to ask the right questions, starting with why, we're able to innovate more. So, the benefits of the why bucket are first of all, it reveals any underlying or overlooked user challenges. It helps you uncover insights, right? And it plays a part from the user perspective, but internally as well as a team, right? It also ensures a solution oriented design process. What does this mean? Rather than focusing on those initial metrics that I mentioned, how fast are we able to, and don't get me wrong, there's absolutely no harm in trying to be efficient, right? So measuring how fast you are in being able to complete a sprint and roll out, right? But as a team, what drives us really? How are we able to measure true impact? So these are some of the benefits of the Y bucket, right? And I'm trying to speed up because I know we don't have a lot of time left, but it also drives organizational value from a user perspective. So if your company really cares about people, if an organization really cares about the people that get to use its products and services, this is something that will be dear to the organization. Being curious enough to ask why users behave a certain way, why the company itself operates a certain way, and ultimately being able to drive curiosity. Sorry, this I'm hoping you are able to still see despite the lag and all of that. But yeah, just being able to drill deeper into the reasons behind why the company does what it does. And at the end of the day, it ignites conversations, right? If I'm free enough, if I am comfortable enough to ask questions, and there's that engaging atmosphere, we can actually have real conversations. And this one, I can guarantee it, you will not be looking forward to closing at 5 and not having any more work conversations, because it's your work. It's something that you love to do, rather. And it doesn't have to be a system where you clock in and clock out. So if a QA engineer comes to meet you, who is a product manager, or let me flip it, because it's usually the PMs. If the PM comes to meet you as a designer by 7:30 p.m. and you receive a message, you not say, why is this one texting me? I beg, I've closed for the day. It will be a conversation of, hey, I noticed that so and so and so and so. Why do you think this is a problem? And you're like, I didn't think about that, or I've not even paid attention to it. Where did you learn this from? Where did you get that from? And you guys are actually having conversations even after office hours, right? Personally, I love what I do. And are we being recorded? I don't mind doing it for free, if I'm being honest. Like, it's so fulfilling. But when you're in an environment or when you're in an organization where that curiosity, no. Sorry, that me to say it again so they can record. But when you're in an environment where that is being stifled, it makes you just, there's something called burnout. How many of us know what burnout is? Exhaustion. You're just, I don't want to hear anything. I just do my work, make they go out, make they pay me my money. Right? So, next up, there's a bit of an interactive activity. So I'm going to move the slide to the next one. So open your app, your Menti app, and question, based off of what I just said, I'd like to find out what company comes to mind when you think of curiosity, innovation, creativity, and what is your dream company, your dream product company to work with? Don't worry, this is entirely anonymous, right? So nobody will know. I don't even know who is answering. So feel free. I'd like to see some responses. I'll give us 45 seconds for that. By the way, is anybody having any issues with this? So you could visit menti.com and enter this code, or you can scan this barcode, or you could type the entire URL. All right, so some responses are already coming up. Amazing, amazing. I'm seeing Reds. I don't know what that is, Reds. Is that a company? Oh, I'm seeing Red. Okay, Reddit, Meta, awesome. Microsoft, Amazon, Spotify, Google, Snapchat, interesting. That's interesting. Snapchat, do they hire people? I've never seen a job posting for Snapchat before. They do? Interesting. I guess they're very discreet about it. All right. So I'm really glad to see the responses that are coming in. And the beautiful thing is that these are companies that we all know to be product-led, right? And I can guarantee you that at the heart of what they do is the drive to stay innovative. And they don't get choice because it's highly competitive where they are. And you find that the leading companies are the ones who put the needs of the users first. And that is how true value is created. You don't have to knock on people's door and tell them to buy your product because it's the best. They will find you, right? And if you are truly solving a problem, they'll find you. But that's not the conversation we're having today. So, still on the curiosity bucket, I would just want to show us how to craft something I call a curiosity statement. And it's very simple, right? Yeah, starts with why. Very basic, very simple. Why? So like the child in that video that we just watched, right? I'm encouraging every one of us here to ask questions. No question is too mundane, weird, stupid, or foolish to ask. It starts with why. And so in this curiosity statement, you have the why, which is basically just the anchor, and then you have the target group that you're asking this question towards. And this target group could be your team. It could be your company. It could be a particular department. It could be an agency, regulatory body. It could be your country. It could be your users, right? It could be anybody that can be categorized as a target group. And then the last part is to articulate your observation. And so what that means is that you are not asking the question blindly, but it's based off of something that has caught your attention, and you are articulating that observation and framing it in the context of a question. Very simple. All this big grammar that I'm speaking is just to say the curiosity statement in itself is just asking a question, right? But I'm putting it this way because it helps to make it seem like it's, a framework, or it's very simple, guys. So I also have this. You see all the things that I just listed out: the why, which is the anchor, which is a constant; the auxiliary verb, or the why is, the auxiliary verb is basically just is, are, right? And then you have the target group and the observation. So I'm going to give a couple of examples on how to do this. And the first one will be, why do our customers select text messages, that's SMS, over WhatsApp as a preferred means of receiving OTP, even though WhatsApp is faster and more reliable? It's something that could come up from paying attention to the data that you're seeing, right? And being able to find out why can lead to more insights, right? Another one would be, why do our product managers only inform us of tasks to be done at the start of the sprint, rather than empowering us to discover and solve problems? This one is on behalf of all the UI UX designers in the house, right? And then the last one, why do we spend more time following a roadmap instead of focusing on what customers actually need? These are valid questions, right? And there shouldn't be questions that get people furious or angry, right? And I believe that it's also a matter of approach, right? Because you'd agree with me that if someone comes up to you randomly and starts asking you why, you get frustrated, you get angry, right? So as someone who is asking these questions, you ought to be able to have, like I said in the previous part, articulate your observation. You ought to be able to have an observation that is based off of something. It could be based off of data, analytics. It could be based off of, if you conduct research or interviews, right? You could have this what's it called now? This contextualized. If it's for your organization or team, right? You could find creative ways to actually bring it up, and I'll get into that. So at the end of the day, okay, there's even one last one. Why do we not allow users to set the preferred? Okay, so this one was personal to me because there's a particular app that I use, and it logs me out after, I think it's less than a minute. It's very annoying, right? And I'm like, okay, why? There's nothing, it's not even a financial app. Like, there's nothing, I don't have anything to protect. Just allow me to stay signed in, please. Save me the stress of having to go through the login process. But, I mean, these are the kind of questions that the product teams should be able to ask internally. But they'll never get to find this out. Who can tell me why? You can yell it out. Oh, you have a question? Can we get high mic, please? Is it possible?
I said answers to this. Product managers usually know why things like this are happening. Do they know? So I'm a product manager and I know reasons why all this is happening, except on the last one. I don't know why that is happening.
So, I'm not looking for answers to this, right? What I'm trying to do is to give you, the PM. Thank you so much for speaking up. What I'm trying to do is to give, especially people in other roles, DevOps, UI UX, product design, QA testers, engineers, back-end, front-end, trying to give them idea or insights to how they can actually ask questions that they observe, questions that they get from their observations, rather. So I'm not looking for answers, right? So, so the white bucket serves as a repository, right? I've been talking about the curiosity statement, but the why bucket in itself is essentially just a collection of these questions, right? It's a powerful tool, and it can be used to shape a culture of curiosity and innovation within product-driven companies. Now, full disclaimer, I haven't had the chance to successfully implement this, so I don't have a lot of case studies, but I've done some research, right? And there are product-led companies that we can actually see and learn from. And at the heart of what they do is a culture of innovation, which is driven by curiosity. And so this is just a tool, right? It's not a framework or a model. It's just a concept, right? Which I'm finding helpful in being able to ask questions, right? So it's a repository that helps the team to cultivate that culture of curiosity. And so, in terms of cultivating curiosity, one of the ways that you can do this would be to have, one of the ways you can do it would be to have a dedicated Y bucket, literally, right? And what that looks like is having a bin or a bucket, not those ones, those iron buckets that they use in boarding schools, but a bucket or a plastic bin that is dedicated, and you have sticky notes or post-its or just sheets of paper where people can write their questions and dump it in. Now, the idea is for this to be anonymous. And what happens is that in some cases, I know product teams that have rituals, right? From the very prominent ones, sprint planning, retro, demo, and some other teams even have like there's this thing called where you get to knowledge sharing sessions. Some teams have jams, different things. I've heard of one recently called camp. Yeah, camp. I don't know what, I've not been, not in ICU. I've not been to one before, but I'm curious to know what it's about. Not so curious because the people there are complaining about how stressed they are. So I'm still calming down my curiosity. But my point is, there are different rituals that that product teams already have. And so how this looks like is just introducing it as a bi-weekly. I think weekly is too much, right, for a start. As a bi-weekly process, 15 minutes, bring out the Y bucket, read out the questions that have been written out, and actually discuss them, right? And the idea is not to solve the problems there and there, right? But to bring to people's awareness that these are pertinent questions that need to be addressed at some point in time, right? Now, so just to be productive, I don't want to see a situation where people are bonding over, how some people bond over trauma. We are bonding over questions that we want answers to. No. The idea is to be effective, to be productive, right? And so, apart from just reading out the questions, you can have grouped questions, group them according to themes, right? Especially the ones that are recurring, and then have like a priority-based approach where you pick up questions that align with the company's product vision or the team objectives. This is assuming that the company does indeed have those. Amen. Anyway, so one thing that I will say is it's easy for questions to be asked and then week after week, nothing is being done, month after month. Please, if you drop a question and it's not being addressed after 2 months, write it again. Put it inside the curiosity, inside the Y bucket. Let it be brought up. And so what this does again is just to stimulate that culture of asking questions, right? So yeah, in terms of taking action, like I said, this is not just a session for bonding over questions, right? Things that this can feed into are discovery activities or discovery exercises, right? And sadly, a lot of the time, the people who get to interface with the customers the most are the customer support, customer success, sales, right? And not the engineers, not the product design teams, not the product, in some cases, product managers, but not always. So this can help to actually take the conversation from the screen, from the office, right, and into the field. Now, the next activity, if you open your phone again to the Menti platform. Someone said their dream product company is Child Deck. I'm really loving those guys. I don't know how they do it. I have a question, and it's not a why-based question. Well, how does somebody become a Child Deck rider? How? I've tried to find out. I don't know. Please, if you know, you can speak to me. It's like they are hoarding this information. But how? And have you heard how much those guys make? Man, I've been hearing some values like this, and I'm like, just to ride bicycle and deliver food. Anyway, they are doing a lot, sha, because they're always also on time. Okay, so the next one is we're going to take 2 minutes to actually. This is an opportunity to vent, right? This is an opportunity to ask the question that has been on your mind since, and craft your first curiosity statement. Is that okay? I'm not getting it. Is that okay? All right. So I'm going to give you 2 minutes, starting now. So craft your curiosity statement. Think of something that it could be product related, it could be people related, it could be team based, it could be organization based, it could even be let me not say it could be country based, right? But whatever it is, ask it why. Be like that child in that video. Why? Why? Ask why, right? So less than 1 minute to go, but don't think too hard about it. Just whatever it is that is at the top of your head, right? Ask. And I'm going to move on, but you could keep typing out your questions, and I'll keep talking, just so that we are good with time. So I told you I did a bit of study on some companies, and I'm surprised. I don't think anybody mentioned Apple as their dream product company, but these are just examples of companies that are actually doing a good job at driving curiosity. One of them is Airbnb, and the founder Brian Chesky, I think that's his name. I heard him say one time that having childlike curiosity is something that he believes that every entrepreneur should have. But I won't limit it to just entrepreneurs rather. I wouldn't limit it to just entrepreneurs alone, right? I think we should all have that mindset because children learn, and I said this earlier, children learn because they are bold enough to ask questions. They are curious enough to climb table without figuring out being scared about whether or not they will fall down, right? But these guys, they noticed that in the early days, they noticed that they were getting a lot of listings on their platforms, but people were not, like the customers were not booking their apartments. And they had a speculation or an assumption that maybe, just maybe, the quality of images that are being uploaded were not good enough, right? They did some digging and they figured that out. Do you know what these guys did? They actually went and lived, or they went and helped the the host take pictures of the apartments, told them how to take the pictures, the angles, the lighting to use, and everything. And they tested it out, and to their surprise, it worked. They started getting more bookings, right? And it just came from a place of asking, oh, why are people visiting the website and churning? Why are they looking at the apartments but not booking? Why are they picking some places that are not even as good over places that are really good? And this was how they were able to do so. I'm going to try and see if there are any responses. Responses are hidden. Okay. Aha, I can see some questions. So, I'm seeing a lot of money-related questions, right? I'm seeing why am I broke? Why don't I have money? Those are good questions, right? And I'm also seeing why does WhatsApp keep changing their status update page to worse features very often? Interesting. But don't let it stop here, guys. Right? The idea of this whole session is that when you find yourself in a place, it could be a company, it could be a team, it could be a volunteer-based activity, it could be at your local church, it could be at your place of worship, right? It could be in your community, your estate, your street, even your house. and things are being done a certain way, and you know that it could be done better, but you haven't just bothered to ask why. I'm giving you permission. Ask why, right? And this session is actually, like I said at the beginning, to help product organizations to drive curiosity. So in conclusion, and if you are taking notes, I'm just going to list out a couple of takeaways, right, about the Y bucket. And I started with the feature factory because the Y bucket is a tool that can be used to combat the dilemma of being in the feature factory. I can relate. I was there. It's not fun. It's not fun. And then it also encourages the culture of questioning and curiosity. I can't say that enough. And it helps to shift the focus away from sprint-based activities to impact or solution-based approaches. And it can be implemented physically, right? I already spoke about the dustbin or bucket. You can also have a whiteboard where you um, drop sticky notes, right? You could have a note, all those boards, all those green boards that you can pin stuff on, right? What else? You could also have a fig jam board, right? If you are in the product space, or even a Google submission form, right? But the idea is that people feel comfortable enough to ask these questions, and so anonymity is very good. As you can see, a lot of people were confident or comfortable enough to ask questions like, why am I broke? I don't know who the person is, but the person has vented. They've asked their questions. Now, sadly, we're not going to practice the why buckets here, because if not, we would have gone into details to figure out why that person is broke, right? But it also relies heavily on leadership support, right? It's one thing to decide to want to implement this in your team, but you also need to get the buy-in from the people that are probably a step higher than you. You need to get buy-in from your teammates as well. This needs to be something that you all agree that, you know what, we could benefit from this, and I would like us we would like to apply this, test it out, and see what it looks like, right? Like I said, I haven't had the opportunity to fully test this out, right? But I'm going to do so, right? And I'm also open to hearing from anyone here who is able to implement this, and let's see what comes out of it.